Hey everybody, welcome back to 90 and Out. So glad you're back watching this video and ready to continue with the Gospel according to Mark. It's the epic action adventure covering the life of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And so far in chapter 8, we're almost halfway through this book, and Jesus of Nazareth is traveling the countryside with his close friends, his disciples. He's healing people. He's getting a massive following of other people along for the ride and the excitement of being around him. But there's this other group of people who seem to have it out for him, known as the Pharisees. So far, they've questioned Jesus. They've tried to trip him up. Jesus has been challenging their social norms and their social status, and they're not very happy about it. So without further ado, let's get right to the text and look at the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 8. And in those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on them, on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on the way. For some of them have come from afar. Then his disciples answered him, how can one satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness? He answered them, how many loaves do you have? And they answered, 7. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before them, and they set them before the multitude. Then they also had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. And those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away, immediately getting in a boat with his disciples, and came to the region of Dalmanutha. Woo! That's a lot of theys. Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given this generation. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and did not have more than 1 loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, Take heed. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. But they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full were left? They said to him, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? 7? So he said to them, How is it you do not understand? Then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored and saw everyone clearly. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell anyone in town. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the town of Caesarea Philippi, and on the road he asked his disciples, saying to them, who do men say that I am? So they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and, well, others say one of the prophets. And he said to them, but who do you say that I am? And Peter answered and said to him, you are the Christ. Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke this word openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, get behind me, Satan! For you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. When he had called the people to himself, with his disciples also, he said to them, whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life and takes up his cross for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his own soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. And that closes out chapter 8. Ouch. Ooh, a little sting right there in the keister, that last line. I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want the Son of Man, Son of God, to be ashamed of me on that day. It's kind of comical. Peter, Jesus called Peter Satan. Yeah. That's comical. Keep in mind, John Mark was Peter's apprentice, his disciple, Peter was his mentor. So this is generally considered straight from Peter's mouth. Yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed chapter 8. I hope you have. I'm enjoying going through the gospel according to Mark. May God richly bless you. Don't take my word for it. Pick it up. Read it for yourself. It's not just some ancient text full of fairy tales. It might actually change your life.